Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Illuminati. The man who rules the world takes on the head of the global elite in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes Illuminati on Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. I got a couple of comments from people on my underemployment video who wanted to say that most heterosexual black men are lazy. Now, these folks want to sit here and say the reason why many black men like myself are underemployed is because we are not really making any effort to do any sort of work or look for work. Now, the reason why I'm starting this video out on my Amazon page is to show everybody what I have been working on ever since I lost my job in 2008 and my books that I've written and published ever since 2002. And ever since then, I have gone on to write over 80 books, and I have published all of those books on Amazon.com and a bunch of other online booksellers. So the whole argument about a black man being lazy is one that many racists love to bring up, and they love to bring that argument up because what they want to do is try to minimize the work of black men and try to say that they are not really making any efforts, when in actuality a lot of black men like myself would make a lot of effort on the job, and that's the reason why they really don't want us on the job. Now, this whole narrative of a black man being lazy as a reason not to hire him is something that came out of the dark days of slavery. Now, during slavery, what the slave master would do in an effort to try to get more labor out of his slaves was instill an idea in their heads that they were lazy. Now, this whole idea that the slave master wanted to put into the minds of the slave was to tell them that they were not producing enough for him, and because they were not producing enough for him, he wanted to get them to do more at that plantation for him. And many of the slaves who would possibly become the bootlicks and the turncoats, they were instilled with fear of not pleasing the slave master, and because they were instilled with fear of not pleasing the slave master, what they would do is look to try to do more labor than their own human bodies can take, because they feared reprisal from the slave master, and because they feared that reprisal, this is what made them believe that they were lazy, even though most of those slaves were basically going out and maintaining the work on this plantation that allowed that slave master to be rich. Moreover, many of the slaves were out here putting in all of the hard labor that allowed this entire nation to be built. But in the mind of many of the slave-minded black people and many of the racists who had this mindset foisted on them by the slave master who worked for him as overseers and laborers, what they wanted to do was buy into this narrative that black people who were working in the fields as slaves were lazy, and wanted to project this idea because many of these same individuals basically felt insecure about the lack of work they were doing to build their own nation. And because those slave masters basically felt insecure about building their own nation, what they would do is project this idea as a narrative of black people being lazy. And after slavery ended, they used this narrative as an excuse to be able to deny black people an opportunity to go work in the job market. Now, the reason why they wanted to deny heterosexual black men from entering the job market is because many of these people who were former slave masters and many of these people who immigrated to this country, they feared direct competition from black men. And because they feared competition from heterosexual black men, what they would do is deny those black men the ability to be able to go out and be able to work at their companies and their businesses because they did not want to see those black men working at their businesses and competing against them. And what they really feared about those black men competing against them is they feared that if these black men were to go out here and compete, they would eventually learn about their business and then eventually take the money that they got as their wages and go out here and start their own businesses. And as they started their own businesses, what they feared is that these black men would start to become direct competition to them as related to their businesses. And if they became direct competition, this is what would lead to them possibly not being able to survive in a nation that they didn't build. So that's the core reason why we have this whole narrative going around talking about how black men are lazy. This whole narrative of talking about how black men are lazy basically comes out of the insecurity of racists who fear black men being on the job. And because they fear black men being on the job, this is one of the reasons why they don't want to hire black men, because they fear if you hire a black man, he will come in and basically shatter many of the anti-black narratives that the white racist knows are lies, and knows they are lies because he would not be able to live in this nation if it wasn't for the free labor he received from black people. And if it wasn't for that free labor that he received from black people, he wouldn't be able to live the lifestyle and enjoy all the privileges and benefits he currently has now. But what many people have bought into in this country and all over the world is the idea that the black man is lazy, and the reason why he doesn't have a job is because he is so-called lazy. Well, as a heterosexual black man, I can tell you that's not true based on what I presented to you on Amazon as related to the over 80 books that I have written, and I possibly would have been able to do that for a mainstream company had they given me the chance. Unfortunately, many of these companies are filled with a lot of racists who don't want to give a black man an opportunity, and they don't want to give a black man an opportunity because they fear that his throughput will surpass theirs, and they fear that because his throughput will surpass theirs in terms of producing products of quality, they fear that they won't be able to compete against that black man. So what they look to do is keep that black man out of the job market, and keep that black man out of the job market so that many whites and non-blacks can enjoy a lifestyle of comfort at the expense of the black man by eliminating that competition. So you have a lot of folks out here who want to say, oh, the black man is lazy, but I can tell you from my personal experience, again, I've written over 80 books and put them up there on Amazon as part of the SJS Direct imprint. Moreover, I've gone out here and I have put in applications for years, and I haven't heard a single thing from these companies. And I wasn't being lazy ever since 1994 when I graduated college. No, I was putting in those applications. I was sending out those resumes. Unfortunately, when it came to employers, I never heard a single thing back from many of those employers. And ever since 2008, I have put in over 10,000 job applications, sent out thousands of resumes, and haven't heard a single thing from an employer. But I will have people saying, oh, you're being lazy. No, there's only so much a man can do if the individuals at these companies don't want to reciprocate and go out here and respond by sending a person a request for an interview or trying to contact them with an offer. There's only so much people can do as related to this job market. And when it comes to heterosexual black men, we oftentimes get our character questioned as related to our work ethic. And as we're getting our character questioned, we get told that we are not trying hard enough when we go out here and bring our best to the table basically every day. I mean, we can go out here and bring our very best to the table, but oftentimes when it comes to a lot of these employers, a lot of them do not respond. And sometimes when we get to the interview process, a lot of those same people, what they will do is dismiss us as liars, saying, oh, we're lying on our resume, or lying about our experience. And then that same white or non-black person, especially a white female or non-black female, can walk in there, tell them what they want to hear, and that person is working the very next day. But the black man, if he comes in, he's a liar from minute one. That's another thing that the racists love to do. You can have the accomplishments, you can have all of the things that show excellence, but they don't want to believe it because, again, in their minds, the only black person that exists are these lazy, incompetent people they have been told about ever since the days of slavery. And they want to hold on to that lie because that lie makes many of these racists feel comfortable about their whole perception of black people. Because in their smooth world, they need to see black people who are lazy and incompetent because that makes them feel comfortable about their place in the system of white supremacy. And in the system of white supremacy, they need to be surrounded by those kinds of black people. And that's mainly why you see only a certain kind of black person working at many of these jobs. Oftentimes when you see some of the black people working at those jobs, they fit a stereotype in some cases. Oftentimes when you see the people that many of the whites and non-blacks are comfortable with, they usually are the Pookies, the Sharkeishes, and the Ray Rays, because that makes their world feel comfortable because they believe in their mind they won't ever have to compete with those black people. And they feel like those people, they won't have to compete with those black people because those black people basically are going to fit all the stereotypes, including the one where they have this perception of black people being lazy. And again, this is ironic because it was this whole idea of black people being lazy that got many of these racists so scared because, again, what they're really scared of is black competition, and they're scared of black competition because they fear black excellence, and they fear black excellence because they know that if there is black excellence, they cannot stand and live on their white privilege. No, that means that they would actually have to step up their game, and it's hard to step up your game when you never really built anything because everything was built for you. And if everything's built for you, you won't know how to maintain anything. And that's the thing that has many of these racists scared, that they don't want to hire black people. And what they want to do is go out here and make this lie to be the truth. So what they do, again, is get the Pookies, Ray Rays, and Sharkeishas passive-aggressively saying, passively, they're hiring black people, but wanting those black people to fail so that they can aggressively say, oh, every time we hire a black person, they don't really do the work, they're really lazy. But in actuality, you're basically hiring what's based on your perception of black, not actually dealing with black people like myself, who have an actual work ethic and can actually go out here and finish projects and have a series of results to show that he can produce tangible products in a right amount of time, and even a record amount of time. Because if a guy like me can write 80 books over 15 years, I mean, that's an astounding amount of books in fiction and nonfiction for one person to write. I mean, that shows a person has a work ethic and is not lazy. But in the eyes of these racists, they'll sit there and say, oh, that's not work at all. Meanwhile, most people can't even get one book written in a year, whereas I can get sometimes a book written in 90 days. But they'll sit there and say that that's not real work because it comes from a heterosexual black man. But if there were a white person or a non-black person to write 80 books, they would basically have that person on the news, have that person celebrated as some sort of genius. But the black man, his intelligence and his excellence are not celebrated, and that's the sad part of dealing with this whole racist culture, which talks about how black men are lazy, even though black men have a strong work ethic from what I've seen. I mean, I see a lot of black men out here who are putting in work, a lot of black men who are out here doing their job, a lot of black men out here bringing their best to the table, but we get told that we're lazy because we go out here and can't really get the jobs. But the reason why we can't get a lot of those jobs is because many employers project their biases and stereotypes that they've learned over the last 4 centuries about black men onto black men like myself. And as they project their ideas onto black men, they don't really see who we really are and don't really respect us as related to being good quality workers. No, what they want to do is see what they want to see. And this is a whole aspect of the spellbound mindset I talk about in my novel, Spellbound. They only want to find black people who fit into the black boxes that are acceptable to white people. They don't want to see human black people who have a strong work ethic, a strong passion for their work, and can bring their very best to the table. No, they only want to see a certain kind of black, not the darker shade of black, which shows you a black person as a human being, and a human being who has a strong work ethic and discipline, and will try to bring their best to the job. No, they don't want to see that black man, or that, in some cases, that black woman, because the only black person they want to see are minstrels and clowns who they want to say are lazy, but are putting in work tap dancing and shoe shining for these white people. And they don't really want to see the black man who's working for himself, because again, it makes them fear them not being able to compete in the economy, because they know if they give that black man wages and he goes out here, takes his skills and starts his own business, what he's going to do is compete directly against them, and compete directly against them, making them realize that in this world, they are not supreme, they are not divine, and they have to actually go out here and work in this world. That is the thing that scares many of these whites and non-blacks about black men. So in order to get an advantage in the job market, what they do is try to demonize the black man by saying that he is lazy, and that's the thing that they use to go out here and disqualify many black candidates just even before their resumes hit the table. What they do is look to demonize the black man, and they look to demonize the black man either at the resume stage by looking at last names and addresses, or they look to demonize the black man by when he's at the interview by projecting their own biases and saying, oh, that guy is lazy by the way he's walking, or that guy is lazy because he is heavy, or that guy is lazy because he's not dressed a certain way, when in actuality, this is their own prejudices being projected onto that black man, because you could have a white guy who is just the same things, and they'll praise all of those things, but they'll sit there and say that the black man is lazy, when in actuality that black man isn't lazy at all. And what you're doing is denying that black man an opportunity to make a living, and denying that black man an opportunity to make a living because you don't want to be around black people, and you don't feel comfortable around a black man. But what you don't understand is that having that black man there is going to make you a better worker, because when you have to compete, you have to bring your best to the table, and people who compete bring their best to the table know that they have to step up their game. But in America, people don't want to step up their game, and this is one of the reasons why black men have it so hard in the job market, because everybody wants to be comfortable, and because they want to be comfortable, they don't want to step up their game, and that's why they don't want black men in the job market, and that's why they come out here with this excuse of black men being lazy, even though a black man could work twice as hard as a white or a non-black man, go out here and bring 100% to the table, but they don't want it from that black man. No, what they want is their smooth world where they can be mediocre and make these excuses about black men being lazy, but black men are not lazy. There are a lot of college-educated brothers out here working jobs that they are far above qualifications for. I mean, they've got a lot of brothers out here with college degrees working as porters, working as janitors, working as cleaners, working as truck drivers, and they're working because that's the only job they can get, and it's the only job they can get because the system of white supremacy doesn't want you to see black male intelligence or black male excellence, because they reserve those character traits for white and non-black men. You can see an intelligent white man, you can see an intelligent non-black man, but the whole idea of a black man having things like imagination, creativity, inventiveness, resourcefulness, these are things that the racist doesn't want to see, because in the racist world, the only black people he wants to see are at the bottom doing menial labor, because he needs that menial labor in order to maintain his base. And the way he keeps his base maintained is by keeping black people codependent. And if he can keep black people codependent, he can go out here and maintain his power base, and by saying, oh, these black people, they are at the bottom of the world, and they're at the bottom of the world because they're lazy, but you wouldn't have this nation if black people were lazy. No, the real reason why you have America the way it is because it was built on the backs of slaves, and it was built on the backs of foundational black American slaves who went out here and built your nation, but you will have the audacity to tell those descendants of slaves that they're lazy, when in actuality you wouldn't have anything that you have if it wasn't for black people, and you would have had even more, but you just don't want to go out here and acknowledge the presence of free black people, because to acknowledge the presence of free black people means that you have to compete, and again, don't want to compete, so they create an artificial narrative about black people, tell this lie to the world about black people being lazy, when black people are some of the hardest working people in this world. And if they were given an opportunity, they would basically take this country to the next level. But none of these people want to see that done, because they don't want to see a black person having power and being seen in a positive light. So that's why they want to keep pushing these narratives about black men being lazy. But black men like myself are not lazy. We bring our best to the table every day. I know I do that every time I put out an SJS Direct imprint book, or I make a YouTube video. I bring my best to the table by doing research, by checking facts when I'm doing videos that people request, or when I write books like The Man Crisis, or even when I'm writing fiction, I bring my best to the table. And there's nothing lazy about me. Even when I was looking for work, I would go out here and put the best efforts into it. Now, I had a viewer say that, oh, they had the same discussion with their father, and I'm sorry that they had this discussion, because I had this discussion with my father many times, who didn't really understand that you're not being lazy. I mean, a lot of times you're just out here putting in applications wherever you can, but you don't hear anything from people, and you don't hear anything from people, and it's not your fault. No, you're doing the best that you can, but the whole thing is you have people out here who want to say, oh, that you're lazy, because they come from a different era where you could go out here and ask somebody for a job, but these days jobs are online. So that's a different video. I may make that video next week, but the whole thing is I hear this whole narrative about black men being lazy, and I have to push back against that, because black men aren't lazy. If we got an opportunity, we would show you the best work possible, but if you don't want that work, I can't show you what you don't want, and that's the whole problem with a lot of spellbound folks. You can go out here, bring the best to the table to them, show them the very best, but they're not going to see it or appreciate it, because they want everything to fit into the black box that's acceptable to white people, or in the system of white supremacy. And unless a white person says that it's good, they won't see the value in it. Unless a white person says that this is acceptable, they won't see it as having value. And that's the sad part about being a black man in America. You can bring the very best to the table in terms of work, bring the very best in the terms of a work ethic, bring the best in the terms of discipline, show you are a good, solid, reliable worker. But unless a white person signs off on it, you'll always be put into the lazy box by a bunch of dysfunctional racists who buy into a bunch of spellbound ideas that are not true regarding heterosexual black men in the workplace. Now, if you want to pick up some of the over 80 books I have written on the SJS Direct imprint, like the books in the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my black sorority novel, The Thetas, my black business novel, A Recipe for Success, or my black vampire novel, Eternal Night, or my men's issues books in nonfiction, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find those books at other online booksellers I have posted my books to, like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and in paperback at Walmart and Target. You can find all of those books at all online booksellers, and you can pick them up at Amazon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to see me be able to make more videos like this, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Isis Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Isis Dark Incubus at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.